We got a balance of 887.6 million Kaspa, around $70 million or so, 3.3% of the circulating supply.
In this video, Ankit had a fun discussion with CatDog around wallet number 2. CatDog has done detailed on-chain analysis uncovering Probify scam and ChaingeFinance.
Total Kaspa reserve dropped to zero. 57 million Kaspa were transferred in a single transaction.
With a background in PhD in computational neuroscience.
Building circuit and cell models of different neurons and neuronal circuits.
CatDog presents some theories on who this wallet might be.
Strategy obviously is accumulation, getting more and more Kaspa in, and very little Kaspa is flowing out.
Supported by Kaspa.com, the leading Kaspa DeFi with DEX and lending. Igra Labs, atomic programmability on a Kaspa block DAG. KaSpaFinance, the first V3 DeFi protocol on Kaspa.
Today I've got with me CatDog. Welcome, CatDog.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here and speak with you on these topics.
I'm really excited to have you here to discuss specifically wallet number 2, a mystery wallet that's been surrounding Kaspa for a very long time. And we haven't got a lot of answers. So I wanted to have you here to discuss that specific topic. But yeah, before we get into the wallet number 2, why don't you perhaps tell us about your background and what got you started in this on-chain analysis?
Sure. So I come from computer science a long time ago. I studied at university. I got bachelor's and master's. I worked in software engineering. Then I went to get my PhD in computational neuroscience, building circuit and cell models of different neurons and neuronal circuits and trying to understand their electrical dynamics, how they contribute to different functions and processes, like cognitive processes, how alterations can contribute to diseases, and also applying it to machine learning, neuro-inspired machine learning. So that's my background in computational studies, but I became involved in certain blockchain projects just from an investment point of view. And during that, I noticed certain projects would make claims, and sometimes they looked a little bit misleading in terms of their actions and what they were claiming about their projects. And different community members would make alerts about this project is claiming so-and-so, that they're using their funds to make certain developments. But then when you look on chain, you can see whether they're actually holding true to what they say, because they provide these different wallets. They say they're using it for this or this other purpose, like development or marketing. And then you can actually look on chain and use the data to understand whether they're being honest or not. And I found that sometimes people would just believe what developers would tell them, so-called developers or project builders. But if you looked more closely at the data and you analyzed it carefully, you could see certain patterns that weren't showing that they weren't really honest. And selling tokens, for example, when they claim that they'd be holding them for a long time, this is kind of common in the crypto landscape. And many people just believe what they're told, but you have to look more closely because all the data is there. So I was applying some of my data analysis skills to this. Eventually, I came to Kaspa because it's a proof of work, fair launch. The technology is really cutting edge, and it has the capability to, I would say, revolutionize some of the financial ecosystem and level the playing field for many people. But some people have taken advantage of that and the community by developing these products, which might work for a short time, and then suddenly they go offline and people's liquidity gets stuck, or they build a bridge, which is essentially centralized. This is what ChaingeFinance did, and that's one of the first investigations I was involved with, to look at their wallets, which they provided in Kaspa. So they had a bridge associated wallet, which would take Kaspa from users who want a bridge to wrapped tokens on Ethereum and other blockchains. And then they could interact with DeFi protocols like Uniswap, provide liquidity, and earn fees. But suddenly, if you look at the bridge wallet, suddenly at a certain point, the total Kaspa reserve dropped to zero. 57 million Kaspa were transferred in a single transaction. And that was the reserve that they provided to people. And then people couldn't bridge their wrapped Kaspa out. So basically, they could either hold it
Yeah.
or they could sell it. And people started selling it because the reserve was no longer there and they couldn't transfer it out. And that caused a massive price drop in the tokens. And a lot of people ended up losing money because the ChaingeFinance DJ Chan or Can was saying that he's going to restore the bridge. It'll be a few weeks, but then it dragged on to almost a year. So I was looking at those wallets and their transactions. I did a recursive tracing of the wallets to look where they sent the Kaspa, and it looked like a lot of it went to MEXC, depending on how you attribute ownership of wallets that interacted with the bridge. If you use a strict criterion, then about 90 million Kaspa was transferred to MEXC. But if you use a looser criterion, then larger amounts, up to 300 or so million Kaspa. So that's a significant amount that was sent to MEXC. And we don't know what he did with it when it got there. Could have been sold. It could have been used for leverage or other complex futures trading, that sort of thing. We don't know what he was doing, but the point is that the reserve was violated basically, and people's funds were withdrawn, and that's obviously fraudulent.
I think Kaspa being the new chain, we have a lot of scams that are popping up, and I'm just gonna assume it's gonna just grow over time as the smart contracts actually gets built on the layer twos.
Yeah, I was just gonna say with the smart contracts, there's more flexibility in computations and more complex kinds of transactions. So it'll be a whole new field for Kaspa where people can unfortunately take advantage of others. We have to be careful, obviously. So it'll be important for people to pay attention to the auditing, which is never a full guarantee that something will work. There could be bugs, and as others have pointed out, the protocol itself that's developed could just be insecure in other ways too. So, yeah.
I wanted to set the context here because we've never had a guest actually. Maybe initially we had some guests that had the dark screen, but since then we haven't had the guest with the dark screen here. We want people to be doxed, right? And show their faces, especially if they're builders, especially if they're selling it to the community, right? However, in this case, you chose to stay anonymous. You chose to stay dark, which is completely fine because you're not selling anything to the community. In fact, you're doing a lot of research in the background for the community, which community is starting to appreciate. So I just wanted to, I guess, tell everyone the reason why you wanted to stay anonymous and why it's dark screen before we get into the sort of presentation that you put together for us.
Sure. So one reason was if I'm raising questions a lot of the time, then I have to be careful about my identity being protected in case people will have negative reactions, and just for kind of the safety feature for myself. But I agree, if I was trying to promote or sell something, then I would need to provide my identity just so people would have accountability for anything I was claiming or selling them.
Yeah. I mean, we prefer that.
So
not all.
that's the main reason anyway.
Yeah, we prefer that to have builders on the podcast and they're doxed. Just because I think if we are bringing a project on the podcast, we put our credibility behind that team. But let's get started with this infamous wallet number 2.
Sure. So, well, right now it actually turned into wallet number 3 as of a couple of days ago, because this Bybit wallet looked like it was consolidating a lot of its different smaller wallets into its top wallet. And we're not clear why they were doing that. But now wallet number 2, which was number 2 for a long time, became number 3.
Okay.
So, but as of September 9th, it got a balance of 887.6 million Kaspa to humpback to around $70 million or so, 3.3% of the circulating supply. So back in March of 2024, that was the first transaction. And the first few transactions were small, but then it was rapidly accumulating Kaspa. And people have been speculating about whether it's an exchange preparing for listing or market maker. And it's not really clear exactly, but there are some hints which we could get about its accumulation pattern to
Mm.
understand what it's trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Um,
I've got so many questions here. But yeah, you've put together a presentation for us specifically on this topic. So why don't we go through the presentation and then I'll ask you any questions that pop up.
Sure. So this plot, well, let me go back to tools a little bit. So for a lot of the transaction analysis, I'm using the Kaspa API, and the code is written in Python, and you can use it to download full transaction history. And where needed, you can follow the links basically to do recursive tracing and look at inflow between different sources at different depths. And then once you have the data, you can analyze it using standard Python libraries like pandas, numpy, scipy, and visualize with matplotlib or the networks package. So for a lot of this work, I'm making the source code available so people can check the details and run it or change the code and run it for their own research if they want to.
Awesome.
Um,
Awesome.
So using that code, I downloaded the full transaction history. This wallet doesn't have the most complex transaction history. Often it just sources Kaspa from different exchanges like Gate, Bybit, and KuCoin. The main source is Gate, but I'll go into that later. So getting the full transaction history, I reconstructed the balance over time. So this green trace is showing the amount of Kaspa in the wallet as a function of time. So you see in March of 2024, it starts and then it rapidly gets up to over 100 million Kaspa, and up to now, it's accumulated.
Sorry, CatDog, you're not sharing anything, right?
Do you see the slides?
No, I don't.
Okay, let me get that back on. Can you see now?
I can see now. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, good. It's all good. Cool. All right.
Okay, so yeah, this slide is showing March 2024, and yeah, so pretty early on, it already had a large amount of Kaspa, over 100 million in some of the first transactions, and it accumulates steadily. So each time it goes up here, that's higher amount of Kaspa inflow into the wallet, and up to September of 2025, it's got over 800 million Kaspa there. And I overlaid the price of Kaspa over that time range just to look at.
So it's 100 million. So, okay, starting from 100
That's
straight
right.
away, the wallet had 100 million in March of last year. And then, do we know where this 100 million came from?
Yeah, a lot of it's coming from Gate, marked as Gate on cas.fyi. But I have to check each transaction. I have statistics on the sources that I'll show later, so you can get a breakdown of where all of it's coming from.
Cool.
But this plot is basically just showing that it accumulates over a wide range of prices. So its strategy obviously is accumulation, and it's primarily just getting more and more Kaspa in, and very little Kaspa is flowing out, which I'll also go into later. And the price data is from CoinGecko. Anyone can download the full historical data. And if you look at the correlation between daily inflow versus price, just a rough metric, it's not statistically significant. It's basically around zero R value. So that shows that they're accumulating over. They're insensitive to price primarily if you look at a very broad level of their strategy anyway. But if you look in more detail, you can see whether they're accumulating more when the price declined in a recent interval. So I'll show that also later on.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So they're price insensitive, which is a big sign, I guess. If someone is price insensitive.
Yeah, looks like large institution most likely. So if we look at the inflow sources, this is just a bar chart breakdown of those inputs. So some of the wallets are marked on cas.fyi, other ones are intermediary wallets, and those intermediary wallets I marked here, like this Gate IO recip one that receives from Gate. from Gates marked wallet. Same with this one, recip 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, and only a small amount comes from KuCoin. But the largest inflow source is Gate.io. Just their primary wallet, which is marked, is about 62% of the inflow. So over 500 million Kaspa. Bybit's another large source of inflow. Probably close to 200 million from there. KuCoin's relatively small. And some of these wallets like Recip1 aren't explicitly marked, but if you look at their inflow, you can trace it back to these centralized exchange wallets, which are marked. So that's just showing the breakdown, so you get an idea where it's coming from.
How did you manage to label the recipient 1, 2, 3, because they wouldn't be labeled by the cas.fyi, right?
Right. So there's two ways. Either you actually download the full transaction history of those wallets, and those specific wallets don't have too many transactions actually, or you could just look on the Explorer, cas.fyi or Cas Explorer, and then you see that the source of their inputs are from their UTXOs are from those marked wallets. So it's just one step up usually if you go one step in terms of where they get their inputs from. So this wasn't the most complicated analysis, but you just have to track it down a little bit.
Right. Okay. Like, have you tracked the exchanges themselves, the inflow of Kaspa on these exchanges? How far back have you gone?
Once you get to the exchange wallet, it's a little bit difficult because they have so many users. They have a lot of inputs and outputs. People are taking their cash off the exchange or uploading or depositing on the exchange. So it goes kind of rapidly. And at that point, you lose the idea of who owns the Kaspa. It's not so easy to understand where it's coming from because it's kind of one wallet for many users.
Yeah, it's not on chain also. It becomes off chain as the exchanges are just doing their own thing between themselves. But cool, all right.
Yeah, so when you add up the Gate.io recipients, then it gets over 75%. So it's largely Gate. But other sources as well. Bybit is significant as far as percentages go.
So between Gate and Bybit, you're looking at almost 95%.
Yeah, the vast majority.
Yeah, there's no one else. KuCoin is just tiny.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a really tiny amount that came from Kraken. People were posting about it on X, something funny. If you decode the transaction amounts using some kind of alphabet, then it was the letters for Binance. So that could come from anyone though. So it shouldn't be taken as evidence that this is a Binance controlled wallet, but it was just something funny.
I see.
People seem hopeful that it's Binance anyway.
We don't know. We don't know. Yeah. All right. So
yeah, I mean, it's not inconsistent with it being Binance. So then I wanted to look if there was a pattern to the incoming transactions. Is there a timing pattern? Because that could suggest who is in control of it, like looking at which time zone they're operating from, possibly. So I looked at the number of incoming transactions, and I built this heat map which shows the hour on the x-axis, the day on the y-axis, and the color from blue to yellow. Blue means low number of transactions, yellow means high number of incoming transactions. And there are two peaks. One is on Monday around 12 UTC time, and the other is on Thursday around 12 UTC time. So that's in the middle of the business day in London. And so that could suggest who the owner of the wallet is. If they're operating in standard business hours, then it would suggest somebody based in London, perhaps. But there are transactions outside of this schedule also, but just the major ones. The vast majority are on these two time periods, essentially.
And these are incoming inflows to the wallet. So you're
Yes.
specifically showing us at these times there are plenty of transactions across different days. This is not for 1 week. This is across all the transactions you've looked at. Very, very interesting data. Very
Yes.
interesting.
So this is the full transaction history.
Full transaction history. This is crazy. I mean, I love seeing this because it tells you a story. We just don't know the full story, but it is telling us a story.
Yeah, it's giving us a hint about possibilities to help narrow down who the owner of this wallet could be, and it's not
Yeah.
conclusive, but if they're operating there, then those seem like they would be the most likely times to provide inflow if they're working out of their office. And yeah. So then another similar comparison is looking at the actual amounts Kaspa that's incoming into the wallet number 3, formerly wallet 2. Everybody loves wallet 2, but now it's 3. So these are the amounts. So the peaks are around the same locations, just in terms of raw amounts. So around 300 million Kaspa Monday at 12 UTC time. The top peak is Thursday at 12 UTC time. That's around 417 million Kaspa. So those are the vast majority. And if you go a little bit outside of those boxes, you get even more. Particularly on the Thursday, there's a little bit of bleed over into Wednesday and up and down 1 hour as well. So that would be even larger.
Like, what can this tell us? Like, I saw the timing. It tells us there are some sort of institutions behind it, right? Based out of London, which actually aligns with the, I guess, if you know the banking hubs, there'll be New York, there'll be London, there'll be, Hong Kong and perhaps Japan. Those are the main centers, right? And maybe Swiss also. So London is a big, big center for financial institutions. And what is this specifically heat map telling us?
So this is essentially the same as the last one. The previous one was looking at the number of transactions. So if a transaction was small, 1 Kaspa, which never really happens, then it would still be counted in the previous heat map. But in this heat map, we're looking at the total amount of Kaspa. So Kaspa itself, how much is going in, accumulated in those, each box is how much was accumulated across the history. So it's just showing that if you look at the amounts, then the peaks are also in these same windows. Because you could have a lot of transactions with small amounts of Kaspa, so this is showing that even looking at the amount of Kaspa, it's still consistently in these boxes here, Monday, Thursday, primarily at these hours.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. A beautiful finding and beautiful representation. Everyone should know how to do this, or we should build tools. It's a hint for Alex to build something similar on Cassandra, but very, very cool.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, I like those bubble maps tools. That's very helpful. And recently he extended it to Kaspa L1 transactions. So that's a great addition. And it'll be interesting to see how it develops and is used further. So now this is showing the outflows from wallet number 3. So where are they going to and what are the amounts? So the outflows went to these intermediate wallets, which then funneled it off to the centralized exchanges. So there was a very small amount of outflow, only around 9 million or so Kaspa. It went to these intermediate gate wallets and to 2 intermediate Bybit wallets. Those were the 2 outflows.
Out of 887 million Kaspa that this wallet holds, it's got outflow of 9 million, which is 1%, roughly around 1%. That's outflown to these exchanges.
Yeah.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, so if it's a market maker, it could be testing deposits to other centralized exchanges just to make sure that it gets where it needs to go to. Just exchanges, so that's one possibility. Yeah. Or the possibility that people probably don't want to hear is if it's just controlled by Gate, let's say, then it could just be reshuffling funds. That's the other possibility, that it's not a market maker. But I'm leaning towards it being a market maker myself.
I was going to say the same thing. It was like, if it's a market maker might be sending funds back to the exchanges, because a market maker I want to define market maker, but just quickly, market maker could be sending these Kaspas to people that are trying to move it to their hot wallets or their, cold wallets, right? It's possible that if people are withdrawing Kaspas out of exchanges, the market maker is just sending these Kaspas to the exchanges. Do you think that could be a possibility?
Yeah, it's possible. We don't know well, we know that they're accumulating primarily. We don't know what other tests they're running, what kind of deals they have with the exchanges. It could be some OTC deals, at least for the inflow. So we don't even know at what price they would be purchasing if they're a market maker. But I would assume they could make some kind of a deal to get better rates, possibly. And then returning Kaspa could be just for testing. That's what I would guess.
I think market maker mechanics are some of the misunderstood mechanics. People need to understand how market makers work, how they make money, and why are they in this game of market making? What is market making? But yeah, I think we can go through this and perhaps have a session, have a little bit of chat towards the end.
So now here I'm just showing the timing of the outflow. So early on, there was no outflow except for tiny amounts, which were probably test transactions to make sure they have correct control of the wallet and that it functions properly before they accumulate a large amount. You can see that early on with these tiny amounts early on. Then there were only 3 large outflows of 1, 3, and a little less than 5 million, and that's the timing. The amount looks like it's growing, but I wouldn't be too worried because it looks fairly infrequent, at least as of now. Some people are scared what if this giant wallet will dump Kaspa, but there's no evidence as of now that they are doing that, with only these small outflows relative to the full inflow. But yeah, I just wanted to illustrate the timing of these outflows here.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
One other analysis I ran was looking whether the changes in price, recent changes in price from the day before, whether that impacts the amount of Kaspa that's coming in. So you just calculate the change in price from the day before, and then you look at the amount, and then you look at the number of Kaspa that comes in when you have these different categories. So a big drop here is defined as less than -2% price drop. A substantial drop, but not as large, as less than -1% up to the next category to the left, and flat is between -1 and 1. And then a rise is defined as greater or equal to 1% increase. And then this is the number of transactions that fits into each box and the average amount of inflow after you have one of these changes in price. So there is a trend where price dip will lead to larger accumulation, and this gradually decreases. But you can also look at the dollar amount based on the current price at the time of the transaction, and whether they're DCAing, which would be applying the same amount of fiat money into the purchase, but it looks like they are not. They're doing something opportunistic, I guess you could call it, where they spend more money actually when there's a price dip. So it's a strategic accumulation, and they're taking advantage of these price changes. So that way they can get it at a better price and get more of it. So that would be a smarter strategy if they have the funds to do so. And but if you compare statistically, it's kind of not significant at the standard p-value of 0.05, which is what people usually use for comparing distributions for the null hypothesis. So while there's a trend, it's not it's not clear statistically, because there's a lot of variation in the individual purchases too. That's why those error bars are so large.
I think the key here, which I'm looking at, is the right one. So even if the price rises, it's still accumulating. That's actually cool to see. Obviously not at the same pace as when the price dropped, but nevertheless, it's still accumulating.
Yeah, and if we had more data over a larger time horizon, maybe it would be statistically significant. And there's different ways to cut up the data, and different percent amounts of change that might be more revealing. But this was just kind of a quick, gross approach to the question. So this is showing the same data again, just the number of occurrences of transactions in these different categories and the average amount of Kaspa coming and the average and the amount spent, basically, just to give the exact numbers more clearly, but it's the same idea as the previous slide.
Yeah, and the mean, just on the previous slide, extreme right, a column, mean previous price. So this is the average price.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So right now they're under the water, I guess, a little bit.
Yes. So do we know what the average price is across all the transactions?
I calculated it before at an earlier time a few months ago, so it's above what the current price is, but I don't know exactly what it was. And since then, there have been more transactions, so I'd have to recheck. Yeah, I posted on that on X before, but yeah, I don't remember the exact number.
Okay. And another perhaps thing to think about, looking at just this data, we are assuming here that this is a order book style trade, which is that they're going to the open market. What about if they are actually doing OTC deals? Because then the price is irrelevant.
Yeah. So this is kind of exactly. Yeah, we don't have the details of that, unfortunately. So this is kind of maybe a weak assumption that they would be purchasing at standard market price. But yeah, if they have OTC deals, we just don't have information on what the deals are. So this is an assumption that we could use to say, even if it's OTC, it could be somewhere around these prices. We don't know how good of a deal they would be getting. And depending on the identity of the owner, if it's Gate, for example, then obviously they wouldn't be paying anything from other Gate wallets. If it's from Bybit, they would be paying something, but we don't know what the deal would be. And if it's a market maker, we have even less information about the details of the purchases.
Don't just look at the average buy price, because it's not a buy price. We have no idea what the buy price could have been. We just sort of,
yep, that's a good point,
correlating the number of transactions happened when the price was this, and we are saying it's possible this is what they paid, but we don't know how much they actually paid.
Yeah, we're a little bit in the dark about those things. But we'll look at the data and see what conclusions we can come up to, if any. So some people were talking about the Binance mining pool, and it's likely that Binance would be operating miners and accumulating Kaspa, but it's hard to be exact about that. So what I did for this analysis, which I'm not showing here because it's kind of a negative result, was I went to wallet number 3, and then I looked at all the incoming inflows up to 5 hops backwards recursively. The thing is, most of the inflows were from exchanges, as I showed before, but some of the recipients had interactions with other wallets. So it took a lot of time to download all the transactions. And if you go back 5 steps, then you don't get any input coming from the Binance mining wallet. And yeah, some more work could be done to look in both directions. For example, start from the Binance mining pool, look at all the outflow up to a certain depth, and look at the backwards inflow from wallet number 3, and see if they meet in the middle. That might be more efficient, but it could be greater than 5 or 6 steps if they're trying to obfuscate and make it less obvious. But the other thing is about this, that even if there was inflow from Binance wallet mining pool wallet into wallet number 3, that doesn't prove that Binance is the owner of the inflow, because anyone can run a miner on that pool. So one other possibility is to just look at the top miners and make an assumption about which miners Binance is running, and then look from those, do forward tracing from there. And that's something that I might do later on. But yeah, so this is kind of a negative result for the most part. Yeah, so conclusions about the identity. broadly. I guess the timing suggests that it's in UK business hours. That would be consistent with the London trading desk. It could be Wintermute, which is located there. They have offices there. If it's Wintermute, it could be on behalf of an exchange like Binance. It's possible because we know they worked together with Binance from other projects. It might price sensitivity, so usually a little bit larger inflow after dips, especially big drops in price, but it's still not conclusive statistically. Looks like strategic buying. Outflows are minimal. Most of the Kaspa is still there. Yeah, so it could be a professional market maker based on the timing and the amounts and the accumulation strategy. And it could be in support of liquidity for listings. It's possible and consistent with that. So that would be the best guess for now. People probably don't want to hear that it's just gate, but that's also consistent with that.
CatDog, if you could please go to the last slide. I think let's quickly go through the market maker part. Yeah, I was going to say, I think, it doesn't conclusively prove that it is not Binance, because market makers will work with all of the exchanges. Wintermute will work with all of the exchanges, right? So they'll work with Gate, they will work with Binance, they will work with Bybit, KuCoin, right? Exchange can choose to have a strategic market maker, or they can have many market makers, right? So I think it doesn't really tell us, because this is all on-chain data, right? And most of the market makers, they work on off-chain positioning, right? As you're pointing out at the last point here.
Yeah.
It could be Binance. If Binance were to list Kaspa tomorrow, or this is my understanding, right? They will still need to have Wintermute committing to it to be able to offer Kaspas to Binance, while also actually managing books across other exchanges.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. Others have also suggested that it could be a market maker operating on behalf of multiple exchanges due to the large amount, and that's also possible. But then when you look at Bybit and Gate and Mexi, how much they have, those on their own already have even more. Like Mexi and Bybit have more than this single wallet. Right. So it could be on it for a single exchange as well.
That's true, actually. I see. So those individual wallets have a lot more Kaspa that's sitting there on their wallets.
Yeah, so they have about 1 billion. They had about 1 billion. I'm not sure if it's exactly that. And I think Bybit is number 2 now with over 900 million.
But at the same time, if Binance were to list it, they need to accumulate a huge position, right? Given the size of Binance, like much bigger position than Bybit or Gate or Mexi.
Yeah, so maybe it will be a while. So maybe we'll have to wait a little more. That could take a while to accumulate given the rate.
Yeah, we're just speculating here, educated guesses here based on what we know about the exchanges. Were there any other thing that you found while you were going through this?
Well, from the Binance mining pool, I have to verify, but there might be inflow at a very high depth. And it wasn't a large amount, but I'm still verifying that, so I don't want to really talk about that too much until I verify it. But it's possible there was a pass that went from the mining pool up to the wallet number 3. So I'm just looking into that before I comment further.
And do you know how much this wallet is buying every month? Like, is there any average number?
Yeah, I didn't calculate that. We can kind of roughly estimate it maybe from here. So it depends on the month.
Oh,
First
I see.
month was the largest, but yeah, you can look at the vertical, how much it goes up from month to month, so you could estimate from here to here. It could be like, depending on the month, it could be 50 to 100 million maybe, just guessing.
Yeah.
But it depends on the month also. Sometimes it's more rapid, sometimes it's less rapid.
Yeah.
Which we saw depends somewhat on the price, recent price trajectory.
The accumulation should have some impact on the price action, but we don't see that.
Yeah.
Right. There was a price spike that happened in May or June when Kaspa went all the way to 13 or 14 cents. Did you see any pattern
Mhm.
that's
Yeah, I should look at that more carefully. But in June,
in the May time
okay,
frame?
over here,
Yeah, around 13 cents, 12, 13 cents.
there
Uh,
was a slight uptick over here.
yeah, that's true. There's a little bump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it might be related to it. But yeah, that would be interesting to check whether it indicates OTC versus some kind of just market buying, like you're saying. But yeah, it deserves further kind
Yeah.
of careful look.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Look, thank you so much for putting this together for us, for the community. I'm sure people are gonna love and come back to you on questions, and perhaps even help you with all the work you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I want to go back to earlier slides, but I just wanted to mention that somebody is still doing investigation of ChaingeFinance. So this slide here, see Holly on X if you're impacted, somebody who worked for Change before and actually had a court case with them and won, but they're pursuing enforcing that, and they're gathering information. So if you are impacted, you can reach out to them. And for Probify, somebody suggested setting up a bounty for finding the people who were involved on proof of works, but that hasn't been done yet. It's something people could consider. Oh, I don't know if we have time for this, but for future work. Yeah, so it would be interesting to expand tracing tools and analytics like clustering of wallets, but some of those tools have been developed recently by Under, and they have the visualization now. So Cas Tools also has other advanced analysis capabilities, so they have NFTs to get into that, but that might be worth looking at also. I was going to download all the transactions for different KRC20s and just look at how the distribution, because people have been talking about distribution of tokens and how that impacts price volatility, whether it's smoother, if it's more distributed, which is probably the case, or if one holder has a lot and they sell, then it could be more volatile. So that was just something interesting to look into. But I have just started downloading the data. And if people are interested in collaborations on different tracking capabilities, then they can reach out. From the neuroscience side, which is actually what I spend more time on, I was considering different ideas about developing decentralized infrastructure for running simulations, similar to BitTensor or Okta, where they have these distributed hardware and you can run different AI algorithms to make inference or learning. But it would be interesting to set up simulations of biophysical models, let's say, and to optimize them in the distributed network and then provide incentives for people to run, because not everybody has access to supercomputers, and that this could be a possible mechanism to support broader research. And I also wanted to thank these people who developed these different developer tools, CasFI, the Cas API, the other people developing tools and products. And I also want to thank DJ for creating Change and allowing me to investigate him. And I hope he gives back people's money that he owes them.